everyone, thank you for watching, and today I have the absolute pleasure of speaking with Alfie Wright, who is an absolutely tremendously inspirational person, who is the world record holder for women's seated deadlift, world disabled strongest woman in 2019, Britain's disabled strongest woman also in 2019, English women's Paralympics powerlifting champion in the 62 kg category 2017, and Britain Women's Paralympics powerlifting champion in the 62 kg category, also in 17. And if those achievements are not enough, we also have Arnold Classics champion in 2020, and the Static Monsters 2019 seated category world record holder for the axial deadlift of 200 kilos, guys. 200 kilos. That's something you don't hear every day. And Alfie is, as I mentioned previously, an incredibly inspirational person, an incredibly inspirational athlete, has an absolutely amazing life story to tell us today. And we're going to get into the mindset of a world champion. And we're also going to get into quite a few other things, including training in lockdown. We're going to get into the inspiration behind weightlifting and how Alfie got into it. And I want to find out how heavy some of those weights really feel as another subject. So Alfie, yeah, so thank you very much. Like I mentioned earlier, thank you very much for talking with me today. It's going to be a fantastic talk
You're welcome.
about your amazing life. So yeah, that's a lot of achievements. So I want to start with something that I think is a reasonable place to start is going back to the beginning, not so much the beginning of your life, but the beginning of your weightlifting, powerlifting, your whole career, your whole ambitions in sport, of how you actually got into sport in the beginning, and also what your inspiration was for getting involved in sport. So I'd like to start there, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, no, that's cool. So I wasn't always a para athlete. I wasn't. I didn't have a disability when I was born. Unfortunately, doing an able-bodied sport then made me into a para athlete. But for about 10 years, I felt very sorry for myself because I was always active and always on the go, ballet, martial arts, running, that sort of thing. So obviously, when you go from that to your leg not functioning, and it's very sad. So I went to the gym. I put on a lot of weight, and I went to the gym just to see whether there was anything I could do. I enjoyed going to the gym. I found it very difficult, very daunting, because people do look when you've got leg brace on and stuff. And then I wanted to do something about 6 years ago, and I looked at rowing. I really wanted to have a go at rowing, but I'm too small. So I thought, well, I'll have a go at weightlifting and see what happens, because I saw the para bench, and I thought, well, I'll have a go, see what happened. And it turned out I was actually quite good at that. So I was in that for a few years, in and out of that, just having a go, see where I went. And obviously I was the English and the British champion, which I never really expected to ever get that. And then I wanted to push myself. So I looked about, and I found a guy called Gary Clark, who he's a phenomenal para athlete. He's a strong man, and I wanted to have a go. It looked really good, lifting Atlas stones and stuff. So it was only last year that I went into that, and because I've come from a strength sport, I seem to be really quite good. And I did all of these competitions and won all of them. I never ever expected to be a world champion in it. I'm new to the sport, but I worked hard, and look where I am now. I've got all the titles I could possibly hold, which I'm actually amazed about. But the training, it's all to do with training and consistency.
Incredible. That is amazing, though, that you didn't ever expect to get there. Well, there's a few things I'd highlight there, and that's one of them. But another one I do want to touch on briefly for our viewers is just going back a step. You mentioned about being involved in able-bodied sports, and that was part of the cause of the disability. I'd like to highlight that briefly, not to dwell on any negatives, but actually to show sort of how you've overcome that and how you've obviously turned that situation around. As you mentioned, something terrible happened, and there was a long period of downness, and obviously you've made such an incredible positive out of it now. But I just want to give a brief mention to what actually happened, if that's okay with you.
I was a runner and a ballet dancer, Obviously, ballet is very hard on the legs, and running, they don't tell you back in the dark ages that running on concrete is not maybe the thing to do because it puts too much pressure on your joints. So about 20 years ago, my joint fell apart in my knee. And then obviously I got help, but 33 operations that actually ruined it completely and left me with a foot that was non-functional. So they were going to amputate, and Blatchford's came forward about 2 years ago and said, no, we can sort this, we can do something for you. So what Blatchford's have done is built me a robotic leg. So I can't, because I'm in the seated category, I can't stand and do anything. I can walk in it, but everything I do is in the seated category. So it's a phenomenal piece of kit. But, you know, for a long time, I was very down and despondent because I couldn't work out what I could do. You know, I was this sporty person, and all of a sudden you've gone from that to my leg don't function. I've got crutches, I've got, you know, leg brace and foot brace. What do you do? You know, and I wasn't in the right mindset for a long time, but going to the gym actually helped. But it's the initial, you've got to get there. And I went to the gym and I felt good when I went to the gym. People did look and think, oh, look at the disabled lady. But, you know, I ignored them and got on with it. And they were doing weightlifting in the gym, and I did want to have a go. But obviously it's a bit difficult to do like clean and press and stuff when you've got bad leg. And that's how I sort of found British weightlifting. But, you know, I always think there's something for everybody, regardless of your disability, there is something for everybody.
Absolutely. And you know that is one of the absolute beauties of sports in general, but especially para sports is there is something for everybody, and it's a very inclusive thing, which in some areas, which we'll get into later on. But before we do, the other thing I want to moving back to more the positive side of it, because it's incredible that you've overcome that, and that's why I really wanted to give that a mention for inspiration for people. Moving back into the you know the para athletic side of it, so post accident, post everything that happened, you know, when you won your first title or when you were having your sort of early successes, because I want to go back to that because you mentioned earlier that you know you never expected to have, you know, the success that you've had, you never planned on that, and it's which is lovely. When you had those early successes, those first that first title or those first couple of things, what was sort of going through your mind at that point? I mean, I imagine it was an amazing feeling, but obviously, you know, you had the experience. So, you know, when you were starting to have some success and it, you know, the ball was starting to roll, what was sort of going through your mind at that point in time?
Well, but when I won the English in para powerlifting, I thought it was a fluke. I thought the other girls weren't trying and they let me win. So then when I went to the British and I won that, and I started thinking, well, maybe I am okay at this, you know. And I in my head, I just think I'm strong, but I don't think I'm as strong as the next person. I never go into a competition thinking I'm going to win. I look at the size of some of these girls and they are like formidable forces, and I'm not like that. And people look at me and they go, you're a strong woman, because I'm not this huge hench thing. But it's the perception. The perception is wrong. You don't need to be this huge hench person. So when I went to strongman, I was shocked by the size of some of these people. I really was. They are phenomenal, men and women. But my training, I am consistent in my training. And I think that's where I do well. I am very consistent at what I do. So it shows. When I went to the British for the strongmen, even Magnus for Magnuson said, where the hell did you come from? He's like, wow, you are strong. But I didn't think I was until I compared myself to the other girls and how, I mean, I literally smashed it at the British. I don't know what happened. I was shocked. My trainer was shocked. We're all like, oh my God. It was like I was in a different league, and that's not me being big-headed. That's just what happened. So then I started thinking, well, actually, I need to really think that I'm actually okay at this, and I need to like dig my heels in and fight, which is what I've done all the way along. I seem to be quite successful.
Absolutely, that's an understatement. Quite successful, but it's amazing though. I mean, to hear that, and it's a funny thing because I have heard a number of very successful athletes say that. But it's interesting because I think for a lot of people watching this or listening to this, they don't have that expectation. I think that a lot of people expect athletes of your level to be, I'm going to win this, and this is going to be what's happened, and it's not always like that. And the consistency is a powerful lesson as well. Day by day, keeping working. Which leads me to another one is obviously training itself and the training you do. I mean, training is quite interesting at the moment, and I know we were talking about that just before we started. But training is we're in lockdown. It's people have had to go to some very unusual lengths to be able to train and
Yeah.
things like that. So let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, how have you sort of adapted your training to the current climate and everything that's going on in 2020 really?
I have a sponsor who gave me money to buy kit. Not masses of money, but enough to keep me going. So I turned one of the rooms into my house into a gym. Now, the strongman community is very, very strong, as in the bonds between each person. And if you need something, they will find it for you, and vice versa. So I asked Gary Clark, who's sort of the father in Britain. I mean, he runs the British. Is there anything you could do? Can you help me? And the man pulled stuff from God knows where. I travelled the 100 miles to go and see him. He got me a log, which I needed. He's now taken to making the Atlas stones for people because everyone was so desperate. The man is phenomenal. He made us all Atlas stones of varying sizes. I was ordering barrels from around the globe just so I could have them. And then I thought, well, what am I going to do with these? So in my garden, I had a fence, and the other side, I had a completely useless driveway. So I had a builder come in, rip that out. And so I had a 25 to 30 foot driveway, which I can work from. So that turned out quite well because strongman kit, you can't really have that in the house. It will fall through the floor. So I've got all my Atlas stones, my rope, my sled, all of that sort of stuff in my garden. So that worked out really quite well. And then I have more of the indoor type stuff inside. But really, it's been very, very difficult. Very difficult.
It's amazing though. I mean, the adaptation that's needed, and as I mentioned to you earlier on, different athletes have adapted different ways, but it's very creative, and it's very very creative. But I definitely think having those community bonds makes it so much easier. I mean, that has made it so much easier. But still, I mean, fair play to you for the adaptation that you've had to do to keep going. But it shows, when you love something, the lengths you'll go to. The other thing to sort of give a mention to here is I want to sort of hone in on the competitions themselves a little bit. And what I mean by that is, particularly on the run up to a competition, so maybe that week or sort of in the days preceding. And this is more mentally, I want to focus on the mental and then go back to the physical. I mean, what's going through your mind? Do you ever feel sort of nervous, or do you ever feel, any of the pressure competition, or you're more excited for it? Or, I know it's a bit of a funny one, but I'm just fascinated by, the lead up to such a massive opportunity, and what that must feel like, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I always question myself. Have I done enough? Have I trained enough? And in my head, I go through what I've done, and sometimes I think, oh, I haven't trained enough. I always doubt whether I've done enough to stay at the top. I mean, I train 2.5 hours a day. That is enough. But when you think about what you've done in those 2.5 hours every day, and you doubt yourself, then you worry about it, and then I usually start worrying about 10 days before a competition. So after 5 days of worrying, I'm over it, and I think what will be will be. Most people start worrying at about 5 days before. So when they get to competition, they are so wound up, so nervous. I've already done that, so I'm okay. But I always think, can I do it? Have I done enough? Are the weights all right? Oh, I don't know. And I always think the weights are too high, and then I get there and they're not at all. But I always think, oh my God, that weight sounds like it's going to be really heavy. And then it turns out not to be.
Amazing. That's fascinating, actually. That's actually a really good technique with the 10 days before, and you've actually sort of used up the worry. I haven't heard that before, but that's actually very profound. I think that'd be a useful tip for any competitive athletes that are listening to this. They can certainly take something from that. And another thing is obviously on the day of a competition itself, and really I'm sort of focusing on these questions to get a feel for the whole process, because it's just there's so many sides of it that are so interesting to hear about. And on the actual day of the competition, obviously, can you sort of walk us through a little bit of the format of warming up and some of the preparation? And this one's a little bit of a funny one, because I don't really have one really specific question about the day of a competition, but I'm just sort of curious about what you go through before and some of the warm up and how you sort of get in the zone, ready to go out there and do what you do best, and just all that side of things, if that makes sense. And I know it's not one specific question, but just the whole process for somebody who doesn't know what it's like. I'd like to sort of focus on that a little bit.
Well, it's really weird, because when I was in British weightlifting, it was very hard the day of competition, really hard. People approach competition completely differently to what they do in strongman, and that's not a negative thing, that's just how things are. So people are very introvert, they don't want to talk to you, they want to just put the headphones on and be in their zone, and you feel a little bit on your own.
Mm.
But with strongman, the community is so strong and got such great bonds that everybody will talk. You'll go out and you'll do your warm up and everything, and the guys will come with you and they'll make sure you're okay. You do your lifts and everything when you're doing your warm up, and you'll get some of them to check, is this all right? Have I done good clearance? Am I okay? And they're all like, they'll tell you where you need to adjust things. So by the time you're ready to go out on stage, you're okay. And then you go out and you do your thing, and then you come back. But the buzz and the atmosphere behind stage is really quite good. Everybody is so supportive of each other, which really helps, because it gives you that drive to do well.
Pure Blue Limitless, the purest phycocyanin on the planet. This is taking the sports industry by storm, with multiple world champions, Olympians, and many other world-class athletes, all the way down to your regular gym goers and fitness enthusiasts, even amateur athletes, using this product to maximize their potential and move a step closer to the life of their dreams. This product works in a unique way on a cellular level. Unlike any other product on earth, this is created with a patented photobioreactor technology that no one else in the world has access to, breaking down lactic acid and reconverting it into ADP. In other words, breaking the waste and reconverting it into fuel. You can train longer, harder, faster, and considerably outdo your competition. Whether you're just looking for more energy, whether you're a professional athlete or somewhere in between, this product is for you, boosting physical, mental, and emotional health through increased energy and amazing world-class anti-inflammatory effects that cannot be
do well. And then everybody is shouting for you when you go out on the stage. Like, what was the last competition we did? The Arnold's. When we went out, obviously we had no spectators because of COVID, but you'd go out and you'd do your thing, and all of the British team, everybody would be shouting for you. It helps when you can hear people going, go on Alfie, go on Alfie. That's so motivational. Really, really good.
Incredible. It must be an amazing feeling on so many levels. It's amazing to hear about it like that, because, the reason I'm asking these sort of series of questions about the day and things like that is it really gives a feel for what people watching it, or, don't see or don't sort of experience, or what people watch, just from the outside looking in, if that makes sense. And it's sort of an inside view, and it's really cool to hear about it. And the last question I have, sort of on that sort of train of thought, if you like, before moving into a couple of other things, is obviously in the actual moment itself of because we mentioned earlier, you said about the one particular competition, you said, oh, that was heavy, and things like that, and everything. And it's interesting that in the moment, I mean, I've heard some athletes say that, in the moment, they're not really thinking as such. I mean, they're just focused on what they have to do and things like that. And I've heard other people say they're thinking quite a lot and they're going through, right, I need to do this. And I've heard it, over the years, I've heard all different points of view on it. But for this, Alfie, I'm very interested in your own. So obviously, in the moment, in the actual moment of lifting, when you're up there, and obviously under normal circumstances, there's people watching and there's people everywhere, and all this stuff is going on. What do you Again, I mean, what sort of goes through your mind? I mean, is it just, man, this is heavy, or I mean, is there other sides to it, or what you get what I mean, don't you? I mean, what type of thing are you sort of thinking and experiencing in that moment?
When the weights are written down, it looks heavy. So I'll give you an example. So 60-kilo log press for reps. In my head, 60-kilo log press for reps is going to be horrific. There's no two ways about that. That is going to be bad. So I try to mentally prepare. And then when it's time to go out, I just think blinkers on like a horse. I don't hear anything here. I just focus on, because you have a guy calling for you. So I focus on my guy calling, because they tell you to press and down. That's all I need to be able to hear. I don't need to see what the person next to me is doing. I don't care. I just have to focus on myself and listening to this man, because if I don't listen to him, I don't get my reps. So they will pass you the log, and at that stage, I don't even care how heavy it is. I just need to press it. And then you start pressing, and it's not as heavy as you actually anticipated, because on paper, that looks quite horrific. But because you've done all the training, it's actually not as bad. And then you just keep on until you can't do it anymore.
Fascinating. It's so interesting to hear about it, that from that point of view, Alfie, because like I said before, I mean, you don't see any of that. I mean, and the other thing that strikes me as a bit funny is a lot of athletes you see, and they obviously appear so calm and things on the surface, and they might be calm by that point, but there are still these mental processes, and I just wanted to give that a mention because it's fascinating. It's amazing. So moving on from that, then, one of the things to talk about with this is obviously, with everything you've accomplished and with all these incredible achievements, is there one that's sort of the proudest moment for you? And I mean, and I sort of was taking guesses. Or it might be this one, it might be this one, it might be more than one. I don't mind. Maybe, I mean, some people tell me the proudest moment hasn't come yet, and it's still to come. I mean, there's all different answers to this. But in your own words, what has been your proudest moment, so far in your career?
That's quite hard, actually, because I've got a competition coming up on the 27th of December. If I win that, I will be so proud, because that means I'll have won the worlds twice. That would be my proudest moment. But currently, I think winning the British for the strongmen is my proudest moment, because that was my first strongman competition. I went into it sort of a bit blind, because I'd had the stuff, so I knew what I had to do, but I'd never been to a strongman competition. So I didn't really know the format. I didn't know how things were going to work. I mean, these girls are big girls. I'm kidding you not. They are some formidable girls. And for me to come in and to literally like win everything was something that I didn't expect. So for me, that would be my proudest moment. And to meet Magnus for Magnuson, because the man's a legend.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, that's cool. That's cool. I mean, again, it's a really interesting one, because people's proudest moments are not always what you think. I had a funny feeling you might say the British, though. I don't know why. I'm not just saying that. I just had a funny feeling, because logic would say you'd say the world, but I just had a funny feeling you'd say the British. So there we go. That's amazing, though, to hear about it like that. There's only a handful more questions I've got anyway, but there are a couple more. So one of the things I want to do now is sort of hone out into a slightly bigger picture of sports and of the sport. And one of the things I want to look at is, in your sort of time in sport, have you seen many developments, positive or negative, in para sports in general? I mean, would you say it's improved over recent years in terms of awareness, recognition, and things like that, or maybe there's still areas that need to be improved? I know this is a funny one, but I just want to get a couple of thoughts, anything you'd like to say on the sort of bigger picture of that, if that makes sense. I know that's a bit of,
I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on parasports. There are some phenomenal athletes in parasport, phenomenal. And when you look at what they can achieve, so I think when it came to London in 2012 was when it really, really showed the world what parasport was all about, because people hadn't seen some of these sports and they were like, wow. And it showed that we do have British athletes that do all of these things. And it showed people who have a disability, and younger children as well, who maybe are down on their luck, think, I can't do anything because I'm disabled. That showed them, well, hang on a minute, actually look at this person and I can do that and I'd like to have a go. And it sort of opened up the floodgates for people to have a go at other sports, which was really, really good. And you've got a lot of younger people now coming through the ranks and being taught by what I call the older generation, who are now teaching people rather than competing. So I think that was important in 2012. I think I don't want to say too much about the Olympic body because they are really, really very good. But I do think there are sports that they maybe should look at that could compete on an Olympic level, because strongman is a phenomenal sport, but we are not an Olympic sport. And I think, there are some sports that would be really good in the Olympics and people would be really interested to watch, because people are always interested in how do you lift an atlas stone? How do you press a log? It's not something you see every day. It's not like swimming or cycling. You can see that on a daily basis, but you can't see strongman. You can't see weightlifting or powerlifting on a daily basis. So some of those things people would be really quite interested in. And it would also show people with disabilities, you can do that. I mean, there's people in strongman with every disability known to man, and they're still competing. They are doing a phenomenal job. People don't eat, they're tube fed. People unfortunately have been blown up in Afghanistan. They're still competing. They're doing a phenomenal job. And to be in the Olympics would be such an honour, but it's up to the Olympic Committee to have a look at that and decide whether we're good enough for that.
That's a powerful message. I mean, I agree 100%, Alfie. I'm gonna come up and say that I agree 100%, and I've thought that for a long time, that there's a lot of, quite a few sports that need inclusion. And I think there was a review, wasn't there, of some sports fairly recently, and I was hoping that, some of these things would pop up. But fingers crossed. It's a powerful message, and it's so inspirational. Following on from that, then coming back to you a little bit more personally, follows on nicely from that. I mean, in terms of your personal impact on, the sports community and on sort of inspiring people and all that type of thing. One of the things I do love about sports in general is that it is obviously bigger than the individual in potential. I mean, it shows people what's possible, and a lot of the stuff you just said, really. So in terms of your personal impact, I mean, I think you're incredibly inspirational, Alfie, in all fairness. But in your own words, I mean, do you sort of think much of the positive impact you've probably had on your community and on, inspiring people, what they can achieve in life, and, any of that type of stuff? I suppose in a funny sort of way, I'm sort of asking, do you realize how inspirational you are, and what are some of your thoughts on that side of things, if that makes sense? It's a funny one, I know, but I definitely think that, you have that positive impact on people by doing what you do. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on that side of things, please.
Well, I don't think I didn't think I had a positive impact on anybody until you get people asking you to train them all the time. And I think, why do you want me to train you? But they see what I do in the gym, and I presume they want help. I mean, I've got friends who would always want to go to the gym with me because I push myself, and I will obviously push them to be the best they can. I'm not a personal trainer, and they all know it, but it's something that people think, well, if this lady can achieve this, well, maybe she could just help me a little bit in what I want to achieve, which is nice. It's really nice that people think like that. But sometimes I'm very busy. I'm trying to like train myself. I feel so bad saying, oh, I can't help you today. But I don't think that I have that kind of impact on people until you go to the gym. And then obviously people are like, wow, can I come train with you? And then that makes you think, well, actually, I am okay. People do actually respect me for what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And people that don't know at work, when they find out, they're like, is that what you really do? You really, really do that? Oh my goodness. And then they look at Instagram and they're like, oh my God, you're so good, or you're phenomenal, which I don't like too much criticism and praise like that. I get a bit embarrassed. But it's nice and they mean well.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's incredible. But yeah, I wanted to highlight that, Alfie, because it's a powerful thing for people. It's a powerful thing, and I'm a little bit sort of kooky like that. I mean, I believe in like that concept of like what they call a ripple effect. You know, you show someone what's possible, and you train someone, you show them they can do it. You know, they might pass that on to someone else, and you know, it sort of spreads the positivity outwards. And I think it's a powerful thing. But no, I don't think people do realize. I mean, I don't think a lot of people realize when, you know, day to day and you're training and you're working and you're going through the process, and it's probably not very obvious, but then when you start seeing the impact, it must be amazing. It must be. So do you get stopped by people and, you know, recognized by people and things like that, like, because you mentioned that in work and
In the gym,
yeah,
people that know me,
yeah,
I have friends that I will train with on a regular basis, and people that don't know me or know of me will say to them, is that lady that's the world champion? But they don't see me like that. I'm just Alfie to them. They like, I mean, when I say they don't care about my titles, of course they do, but not like that.
yeah.
They just want to train with me because they're my friends, and the people will just they will literally stop me and start stroking me. Are you really that person? Oh my goodness. And then I get quite embarrassed. I'm like, yes, thank you. I'm always nice and everything. I'm always pleasant and polite, but it can get a little bit tedious sometimes.
Yeah, I bet. Amazing. Okay, so really the last thing to really touch on here is obviously future plans, because I want to give that a quick mention because you mentioned about the 27th of December. Best of luck, by the way. I'll be cheering
Thank
you
you.
on, Alfie. I'll be cheering you on. But yeah, I mean, obviously future plans, because I know that um, when I was researching this, one of the things that came up was that I believe you said that the Olympics was a goal, and obviously that's been um, postponed. I'm sure I saw that somewhere, but correct me if I'm wrong, and other things like that. And so, you know, in the broad strokes of what's on the horizon from here, because we've spent a good portion of time looking back, which is brilliant because what you've accomplished so far is amazing. But I know obviously there's more to come, which is always a good thing. So yeah, I mean, it's, you know, some of your sort of goals and ambitions and dreams from this point forward. Let's talk a little bit about those.
So the 27th of December is the world's strongest disabled man. It's not going to be like it was last year. We're not going to Iceland, but what the countries are doing, all countries are going to compete at once on the 27th. It's going to be live streamed on the internet. It will be live streamed to Magnus van Magnussen and Arnemar Johnson, who is our founder of Strongman. And they will then have to go through hours of video. And from that, they will determine who the winners are. So that's December. Now, they've just cancelled the Arnolds in March. So that's going to be at the end of the year, I think, now. But Eddie Hall has already, I think this was last year or the year before, decided he's going to hold the Arnolds in the UK. And I think that's going to be somewhere like September, October time. So everything that you would get at the Arnolds in Columbus, Eddie Hall wants to bring to the UK. So I presume, I've not heard that that's being cancelled. So I will be competing at that. In between, I don't even know what we've got, because, I mean, they cancelled the British this year. I don't know whether the British will be held next year. I'm not sure. It's very up and down, really, because of COVID. No one really knows what's going to happen.
It is. It's up in the air at the moment. It's very, I know. But I still want to give it a quick mention because obviously, dreams and goals are very important, and one way or another, you've still got a lot more to achieve. But I know, and I know there's a lot more you want to achieve because that comes over with that. And I love that because you're not the type of person to sort of rest on your laurels. There's a lot more
No.
you want. So I love that. I wanted to give that a quick mention, that you're still aiming very high and aiming for those dizzy heights of success again. But I wanted to mention that, but I know it is all a bit crazy. So, who knows what will happen.
I mean, at one stage we were, there's a guy called Big Mike, and he's one of the strongmen in the standing category. I think he may be the world champion in the standing category, but I don't want to get that wrong. Now he knows of a school of disabled children that haven't been able to do their physio and stuff properly, and we were all going to go down and show them what we do and have little sessions with them, but obviously COVID, we went into lockdown, and so we haven't been able to do that. But I think that's something that the strongmen may be looking to do, to go to schools of disabled children and show them what we do. Some of the guys are going to go out and just try and smash some records out, I think. So we'll all be doing something, but it's just not quite sure what we can do currently because of the current climate is not great, is it really? So we'll see what happens.
Absolutely, we'll see. We'll take it one step at a time, I think. Absolutely. And the very last thing, Alfie, is there anything in particular that you would like to say to your fans and people watching this and people following this? Because if there's not anything specific, it doesn't matter. But I always like to give people a chance in these interviews in case there's anything they're holding on to, any final words they'd like to say to people, watching, to your supporters, anything like that. Like I say, if not, don't worry. But is there anything like that you're sort of holding on to you'd like to share?
Well, we're all self-funded. Strongmen are all self-funded. So the sponsors that I do have, I'd just like to thank them. Medivita, they make CBD in Basingstoke. They sponsor me. Hampshire County Council sponsor me religiously every year. So I'd like to thank them. And the gym group in Basingstoke, who allow me free access all the time and support me 110%. To any of the guys that help me, to my trainers, I just want to thank them, because without these people, it wouldn't be possible. It's expensive to all of a sudden you've got to go to Canada because you've won this, and finding £700-800 for a flight is, you can't do it when you have a house to run. So I'd like to thank my sponsors and people that have supported me, and people that have supported me on Just Giving when I've needed to get to somewhere and I thought, oh my goodness, how am I going to do it? All those people have come through for me. So it's a big thank you to all of them, because without them I wouldn't be able to get to where I need to go.
Amazing. I love that you mentioned that, Alfie, because yeah, I agree, and that's one of the beautiful things about sports, and no one is an island, as they say, as the saying goes, no one can do it on their own like that. And I know aspects of the actual competition come on the day they come down to the athlete, but there's so many people that sort of help them get there and things like that. And I'm really pleased you gave that a mention. But no, I mean that's everything that I wanted to cover. I mean it's been fantastic. I knew it would be good, but this has been much better again than my expectations. To be honest with you, I mean I knew it would be very good. Don't get me wrong, but it's exceeded. And there's some stuff you've answered without me even asking it and things like that. And it's just been brilliant. We've covered so much good stuff. So thank you so much for your time, Alfie. I've really enjoyed it. And,
you're more than welcome. Thank you for having me.
Thank you very much for watching. Please subscribe to the Simply Inspired YouTube channel, and there'll be more videos coming soon.